With regards to Rematch's ranked mode ranking system, it does a few standard things, improves on a few aspects from similar titles, and really strives for unique solutions in other areas too. In this video, I'm going to break down how the ranking system works and why it's great. So let's start off at the beginning. Rematch is a football game with precise controls. The fundamental mechanical foundations of the game has a higher than average skill floor, meaning the barrier to competency with the minute-to-minute gameplay is higher than with other competitive titles. Therefore, it is a smart decision to gate access to ranked until a certain amount of experience has been gained, and that's just what the game does. The player cannot play ranked until level 5. Now trust me, level 5 doesn't sound like a lot, and compared to games like Valorant or Overwatch, it really isn't in terms of game time. But those games have a lot more for the player to learn to be somewhat effective in ranked. Rematch just requires you to learn the controls. It can take between 2 to 3 hours to get to level 5 in Rematch, and let me tell you, the difference between player competency just from those 2 to 3 hours is a gulf. Now, breaking down the actual rank structure, as every competitive game does this slightly differently. Rematch has 6 ranks: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and elite. In each of those 6 ranks, there are 3 divisions. Division 3, then 2, then 1. Once you win enough games to leave Division 1 of a certain rank, say gold, you are then presented with the opportunity to rank up into plat, for example. Now, I'll get onto the opportunity to rank up in a second, but let's quickly just take a look at the numbers. With each win, you get 20 rank points, RP. You need 100 to rank up. Alternatively, if you lose, you get minus 20 rank points. Just purely talking numbers here, if you get from bronze division 3 to elite division 1, you will need to win 5 times per division, so 15 times per rank, and as there are 6 ranks, that's 90 wins. At an average game time of 10 minutes, with stoppages for goals and added time, and also including queuing time, that's roughly a total of 15 hours, which is a good chunk of time even if you go through the whole run without losing, which of course would never happen. Even if you're the best player in the world, you'll get unlucky with someone leaving or something like that. But regardless, so far, this is all pretty standard stuff, but it's done cleanly, simply, and it is presented really well to the player. So let's get into the not so standard stuff. Regardless of individual performance, rank differential between teams, or other circumstances, you always gain 20 RP. No more, no less for the majority of players in the majority of circumstances. This on the surface presents the rank system as a reflection of being a good team player. If you are consistently winning, the game doesn't want to punish you if your stats aren't particularly good, as you can do a lot in a game of Rematch without contributing in a measurable way. However, one thing I think the consistent 20 RP gain does is it removes frustration around the promotions. There are no circumstances where you'll be 1 RP off or 2 RP off. It'll be incredibly unlikely. But in saying that, you can be 5 RP off, and I'll tell you why. Now, I talked about RP gain. Let's talk about RP loss. If you were at less than 20 RP and you lose a game, because you always lose 20 RP, you would be relegated to a lower division. You would be if there wasn't demotion protection. Demotion protection gives the player another opportunity to save themselves. If they win, then they get 20 RP back and are safe again. However, if they lose, then they lose a total of 25 RP, putting them at 75 RP in the lower division. This works well in 2 ways. Firstly, it takes some of the remainder RP from the potential loss, if not for the demotion protection. But more importantly, it requires the player to win more than 1 game to get back up to the division they were just in, which avoids the constant yo-yo effect. Now, if this wasn't the case, it would actually weight the win rate and the ranking in a weird way, as if it takes 2 losses to get demoted but only 1 win to get promoted. The player could effectively have a 33% win rate and still be the same rank, which is good to avoid. Again, in saying what I said about win rate, I am now going to challenge that with another fact, which is effectively, there is a circumstance where you could lose 10 games in a row and not get demoted. And I don't just mean if you're in bronze division 3. Rematch does something exceptionally interesting and initially controversial with its rank system. Once you are a certain rank, meaning gold or plat or diamond, you cannot get relegated out of that rank. To clarify, you can get relegated to a lower division of that rank, but once you're in division 3 of any given rank, you cannot go lower. So yes, like I said, you could lose 10 games in a row, or 100 games in a row in fact, and not move a rank. I'm just going to say straight up, this is a great idea for this particular game. One huge pain point for the competitive player base of any game is the feeling of demotion from an entire rank. Maybe it's a rank you've been working towards for years, only to get it and lose it. Or maybe they are just on a bad run and this is the 3rd rank demotion in a row. I know we've all been there. Rematch shifts the perspective of how rank is presented. Instead of it being a presentation of your current skill level, it is the presentation of what you're capable of, your peak performance. In doing this, it removes the circumstance of players just not wanting to play because they don't want to risk demotion. Getting promoted is still very hard to do. To get promoted, you have to prove yourself consistently against a similar or better caliber of player. And that's made even harder by the best 2 out of 3 promotion matches you have to play to secure your promotion, proving that you have to have a higher than 50% win rate at that level to make it to the next level. But once you're there, you're safe. I will say though, the game does take the sting out of this a bit if you do fail that best 2 out of 3. Because if you go into that same string of promotion matches again for that same rank, you will start with 1 win already banked. And I think this is great. Partly because of everything I just said, the presentation and the fact it's so hard to do in the first place, but also because it literally doesn't matter. Not when concerning matchmaking anyway. Now, a bunch of games do this. Pretty much all competitive games do this. I have never seen a game disconnect presentation of rank and hidden MMR so starkly than I have with Rematch. They are completely disconnected. Yeah, if you lose 100 games in Gold Division 3, you are not going to be going against Gold Division 3 players despite staying at that rank. You'll probably be playing against bronze players. Now, rank is not presented to other players anyway, so there is no way to see this disparity. There is no restriction on what ranks you can play with or against. You can have elite and bronze players in the same party, because ranks don't matter. It's all about the MMR. And I think it's a great decision for Rematch in particular. The rank system works because the players don't see it, but at the same time, they can see the best version of themselves in their current rank and strive to do better. If they have a bad few games, they aren't punished to the point where they lose that presentation. It balances the feeling of loss and the feeling of success incredibly well. Now, this wouldn't work for a lot of games, especially and obviously pre-established competitive games included. The outcry would be unquantifiable for some communities, but I think it's commendable and worth celebrating a game for taking a leap and changing a tried and tested formula in a significant way. To change the fundamental design of such a core pillar of a competitive experience takes a lot of bravery from a developer, and I think it's paid off. I think it's better than it would be with a more traditional ranking system. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something about at least the Rematch ranking system, but also about maybe taking a step back for your own games and looking at some of these pre-established features or mechanics or design choices you have in your own projects and seeing, do they need to change for this game? Now, don't forget to subscribe, tune in next week for another entry into the game design library, and keep on keeping on.